There is the sound of thunder in the background. Or is it the sound of the first Kraftwerk album playing? I don't know. Well, actually, I do know, but I'm just being coy because I don't want to be the big spoiler for this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes. That's T to you and me, and not only you and me, but making a very early appearance here on Tent Talks Tunes, good old Harry. Yes, he heard me squawking and yapping and decided to come right in and make himself known. So for all of you people who are tuned in early tonight, you get me and Harry right from the get-go. Yes, what a wonderful thing that is. Let's reach over here and click a couple of buttons and make sure that I am going live here on the dreaded Facebook. That doesn't matter to those of you watching on YouTube, because every episode of Tent Talks Tunes is archived forever and ever on YouTube. So it doesn't matter to you if I'm, 1 or 2 minutes late, or if I've got camera malfunctions or whatever. But since I'm doing this here live, on the fly, Ray Brennan says, "Who dat? That's Harry the Cat. That's who dat. My boy, my ever-loving cat man, yes. The star of the show, the scene stealer Maximus, the fine, furry, fuzzy-faced, fang-fearing fella." What is this, a tag on my shirt? Wow. This really is the best of live internet streaming. Alan knows what I'm talking about. Ray knows what I'm talking about. And all you people watching this forever and ever and never on YouTube, that's just the way it is when we go live. Sorry, guys. Anyway, I am streaming. People are tuned in and stuff is happening. And Harry is very precariously perched. And we are ready to get down and boogie with some talking of tunage. As we all know, I like to check the bulletin board and the mailbox before we get into the meat of the matter. We got a few things going on, first of which I like to reiterate my brand new mailing address, P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina. A number of people have remarked on the irony of my relocating from Newtown, Connecticut to Newton, North Carolina. And there goes Harry. Bye, Harry. He probably doesn't like the thunder too much. Yes, Newtown, Connecticut to Newton, North Carolina. It's just kind of the way the moving van moved. That's just sort of how I ended up relocating myself. It was probably somewhat akin to Jim McGuinn changing his name to Roger McGuinn because of some weird numerology. I really don't know. But I am in Newton, P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina, 28658. Please ignore any and all previous post office box numbers I might have posted or talked about. It took me a few weeks to wrap my head around the proper P.O. box number, which was 173. I even had something mailed to me that got returned to sender because I gave him the wrong box. Very embarrassing. There's even one package I was filling out the return address to, and I first wrote my old P.O. box number in Connecticut and then the wrong P.O. box number in North Carolina, and I finally got it right. With enough repetition, I am capable of greatness. So there it is. P.O. Box 173, Newton, North Carolina. Check that out, kids. MalcolmTent.net. After, almost 3 years of dormancy, my website is back up in action. It took a while to unravel the wrinkles, the technological glitches that were preventing my website from being updated, but I finally got them ironed out and just added a couple of pages of content to the website. One of them is a page of my rock and roll writing that I do for Outsider magazine, but I figured it'd be good to have that stuff represented online. So a whole page of writings about my various experiences in the rock and roll field, and another page of oral history of my original South Florida punk rock band, Broken Talent, as dictated by those who were there to tell the story. And those tales were originally going to be part of the liner notes for the Broken Talent anthology album that came out on Florida's Dying Records a few years back. But there just wasn't room in the packaging for all those liner notes, so I didn't want them to disappear into the ether, so now they are in the ether on malcolmtent.net. Also completely updated with all the dead links taken out, and upcoming events and gigs. It's 100% up to date as of 3 days ago, so by all means, if you can't get enough of me here on Tent Talks Tunes, or the dreaded Facebook, malcolmtent.net should get you sick enough of me soon enough. And I'll drink a partial gallon of hickory tap to that. Yummy, delicious. Grant Den is in the house. Grant, the original guitar player for Broken Talent. Grant himself has a few paragraphs of Broken Talent reminiscences on malcolmtent.net. There's also a photo that he sent me a long time ago of his copy of the original set list from the very first ever Broken Talent gig when he was the guitar player. And I don't remember if I posted that on the website or not. If I didn't, I definitely should. I need to get some more of those golden oldie photographs on the website because there's some really good stuff. And that picture of the set list was definitely a thing of good stuff for sure. So thank you for that, Grant. Always a pleasure to hear from you and see you on the internet. So yeah, we got events coming up. We've got something that's very exciting. We'll sort of go in a counterclockwise direction from the bottom up. The most recent, or I should say the most urgent upcoming event on my calendar is that I'm taking a little trip down to the Queen City of Charlotte, North Carolina. I think on Saturday. I haven't confirmed this yet. But as it stands now, I believe I am going to Charlotte on Saturday to pick up my box of brand new, freshly pressed vinyl of the Anti-Scene Time Machine. Oh yes, a 4-song maxi single pressed on 3 shockingly garish colors of vinyl. Only 2 pictured here, but there are 3. It's us featuring great golden oldies, to use that term again, from the 60s and the 70s, putting our own unique spin on songs by Sonny and Cher, the Mothers of Invention, Donna Summer, and the Sex Pistols, all narrated by the dulcet tones of a genuine radio announcer, taking you back to those wonderful days of yesteryear on WSOD, the only radio station that has ever mattered. So we have on our maxi single a little slice of golden oldies radio as interpreted by us, the boys from Brutalsville. And all I can say is make sure that your speakers can handle it. Oh yes, because it was made loud to be played loud, and we would expect no less from you, the discerning, educated listener. So very soon the vinyl will be in my possession. We also have on August 9th at Repo Record Shop in Charlotte, North Carolina, the record release party for the Anti-Scene Time Machine. We will have the records in stock. They will be right there. All 4 members of the band will be there to, pose for pictures, deface the covers of the records with writing all over them. And we're going to play a short blitzkrieg set of about a dozen songs designed to drive the point home. After which there could very well be more posing for pictures and signing of autographs and whatever it takes to get the job done. So August 9th, Anti-Scene in-store live appearance promoting the brand new Anti-Scene Time Machine Record. Mark it on your calendars. Do what you got to do to be there. Just be there. New releases, I already mentioned a few times about the G.G. Allin book, My Misadventures with G.G. Allin. written by his late friend Len Colby. First edition soft cover, 500 copies, each one hand numbered. If you order it from me directly, I am happy to sign it if you want, because I edited the darn thing. If you want to go for speed and convenience, it's available on Amazon all over the world. Can't sign or number them, but if you're an overseas purchaser, you will not take nearly as much of a beating on the shipping as you would if you ordered it from me here in the US of A. So look for it on eBay, talk to me about it, go on to Amazon. It's a jolly good read. It's breezy and brutal at the same time, and I'm very, very, very happy with the way it came out. So if you like your rock and roll biographies, you might want to check that one out. My main man, Kyle, is chiming in to say that the book is awesome and he got it in the mail really fast. Thank you, Kyle. Customer Service are my two middle names. That's Malcolm, Customer Service, Tent, MCST. That's me. What's happening also in the events column, July 19th, which is coming up real soon, at, what's the name of that joint? The Clearwater Art Studios in Concord, North Carolina. Clayton and Wenzel, that old-time acoustic gospel band, make their second ever live performance. Yes, in Concord at the Clearwater Arts Center. And what's that got to do with me? Well, I'm going to be strumming my acoustic guitar behind Clayton and Wenzel, along with Jeff Williams of Stop Talking and many other great projects. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be just some good old time picking and grinning. And you'll even see me stomping on a bass drum for a couple of songs. So it's fun. It's also breezy. Nothing to it. July 19th from 6 to 9 p.m. I'm pretty sure we're going on last, but don't quote me on that. I have no doubt that there's website, internet, you know, all that modern day newfangled bulletin board stuff, whatever you kids call it, this dial-up service. I don't even keep track of that stuff. Internets, whatever they are. Look it up. You'll find out the details, whether it be on the Jeff Clayton Facebook page or probably on the Anti-Scene official Facebook page as well. Pretty sure you will see mentions of that. And then, of course, coming up Friday, September 19th and 20th, not one, but 2 days of pure rock and roll mayhem. It's the Rule Breakers Ball 2025. 10, 11, 12. I mean, how many bands have we got here? Taped Fist, Future Hate, Knowledge is for Fools, Before I Hang, and Rancid Vat on night 1. Night 2, Blue Ridge Death Cult, Wrath of Typhon, The Self-Made Monsters, Josephus and the George Jonestown Massacre, and of course, the guys who put it all together, that little old band from Brutalsville, Anti-Scene. Ground Zero, Spartanburg, South Carolina. 10 bands who will take you, I'm talking about you. 10 bands who will collectively take you and place you in a metal compactor and crush you into the size and shape of a densely packed cube using the pure sonic force and personality power at their disposal. And you're going to love every second of it. Mark my words, September 19th, September 20th, Ground Zero, Spartanburg, South Carolina. And then after that, we got Anti-Scene playing at the Brown Mountain Lights Festival in Morganton, North Carolina. We've got a run of shows in December. We got all kinds of cool stuff cooked up for you people, which I will keep you abreast of. Because that's my job as the Minister of Propaganda for Anti-Scene Incorporated. My job and my joy. So what do you say, guys? Why don't we get together and do some Tent Talks tuning? I knew you'd like that. We're going to do it. We're going to talk tunes. So, weird records. Weird records. There's so many weird records and so many definitions of weird out there. And I started pulling product to talk about. And, you know, at first I started going for the records that were, you know, very easily and overtly considered weird, you know, by almost any normal standard of definition of music, art, fashion, culture, what have you, records that are easily identified as weird. But as I started leafing through my massive record collection, I came across records that really are weird, but maybe not in ways that you would normally think of them being weird. And so I started pulling records, and I came up with a little short stack here. I want to talk about genuinely weird records, but maybe you wouldn't have thought about them as being weird. And the first one I flashed, of course, is the great Kraftwerk. This is a bootleg CD of their first ever album. And the reason I'm flashing the CD is because of the cover image, which is instantly recognizable as being a Kraftwerk product. The record I have in my personal collection is this really nifty UK double album that has both the Kraftwerk 1 and Kraftwerk 2 compiled into one package. And it's a gatefold sleeve. It's got the original artwork from the original German pressings. And look at those long-haired, shaggy, bespectacled fellows. You'd never guess that was Die Mensch Machines in the making. Bunch of Dusseldorf art students is what you see in here. And that's quite probably the reason why the first, not one, not two, but 3 Kraftwerk albums have been out of print for the better part of 50 years, actually longer than 50 years, in which the band themselves steadfastly refuse to reissue. They consider Kraftwerk 1, Kraftwerk 2, and Rauf und Florian to be non-canonical Kraftwerk albums. And listening to these early Kraftwerk albums, it's very easy to see why. And it might be very easy to see why this first album especially is really, really weird. This, my friends, is a weird album, no matter how you look at it. It's got 4 songs on it, but only one of them really is recognizable as a song per se, with rhythms and melodies and a beginning and an end. The other 3 pieces on this album are really true representations of the band name, Kraftwerk, which means power plant in English. It's the sounds of a power plant, basically. You've got lots of mysterious hissing and strange echoes and banging sounds and mysterious thumps and bumps in the middle of the night. And then there are parts that get more rhythmic and more melodic, but then it goes back to being weird and atmospheric, I think is a good word to say. It sounds just like what the band name is, like Late Night at a Power Plant. If you guys can hear that thunder in the background, typical North Carolina thunder, that's really not too far removed from a lot of the sounds on this first Kraftwerk album. And you can only imagine what it was like buying this album in 1970 when it first came out. Think about that, 55 years ago. And dropping the needle on the groove and hearing these very strange, creaking, moaning, grinding, sibilant sounds for about 45 minutes with one song that you would think is a song and kind of parts of songs here and there. It's weird. It's like legit, genuinely weird. One reason why I love it so much. It's definitely not the kind of album that I would sit around for casual listening and play from start to finish, but every once in a while, I'll sort of catch the yen to play that first Kraftwerk album. And it's interesting because between the first album and second album, you got a little more musicality, and then between the second album and the third album, you got a lot more musicality, and then between the third album and Autobahn, you got lots of melody and drum machines and stuff like that. And to get back to what I was saying earlier, I'm guessing the reason why the first three Kraftwerk albums aren't considered canonical is because they're basically all organic analog instruments like guitars, violin, flute, drums, percussion, and also just the by and large lack of song structure. So I think they're all great records and should be in print, but who am I to second guess Rolf Hoyte, the last man standing in Kraftwerk? If he wants them out of print, they're going to stay out of print. And that's all she wrote. Dear Ralph, they sent your Kraftwerk home. We got some more weird records for you. Check these two out. These are real favorites of mine. Oh, wait, Miranda is chiming in. She says that she's been searching for a radioactivity record which walked off. I'll tell you, Miranda, nothing worse than a thief with good taste. I will unfortunately drink to that. Here we got not one, but two weird records. And this ties into an entire genre of music. Weird record number one. This came out in 1970-something, 1960-something. Let's just make sure I got the date. I'm not sure if these albums are dated. 1968. Okay. I'm going to guess this other one is also from right around the same vintage. It sure looks like it. So for the sake of argument, 1968, very strange record, very weird. I'm talking about Electric Mud by Muddy Waters. And what I would think is safe to say its companion piece, the new Howlin Wolf album, quote unquote. And what great cover text. This is Howlin Wolf's new album. He doesn't like it. He didn't like his electric guitar at first either. Well, you know, there's a reason why Howlin Wolf didn't like this record. And there's a reason why I'm willing to say that Muddy Waters probably didn't like this album either. It's weird. It's weird. These two records are part of a whole trend that there was in the late 60s to try to, shall we say, rehabilitate some of the older classic musicians and bring them up to date, to make them contemporary, to modernize them, if you will. And the way that the powers that be did that was to pair the great bluesmen, and they also did this with Chuck Berry and probably a few others, to pair the great bluesmen with young, psychedelic rock musicians and have Howlin Wolf and Muddy Waters go psychedelic, basically. And, well, let me tell you, the results are weird. Alan Versapella says that he loves that Howlin Wolf record. I love this Howlin Wolf record too. I love the Muddy Waters record too, because they're just so weird. The Muddy Waters record, I wrote a description on it. The Muddy Waters record, as I wrote this description of, 40 minutes of overblown guitar emoting with Muddy phoning in his vocals. That's basically right. Track B2. What's track B2? Track B2, according to my notes, which is a song entitled, Herbert Harper's Free Press. Yes, Herbert Harper's Free Press. That is very 1968. According to my liner notes, if you listen to this song, you can hear Muddy Waters totally lose interest by the end. And he didn't sound very interesting to begin with. So yeah, by the end of Herbert Harper's Free Press, he was just not having it. Not even phoning it in, having somebody dictate the lyrics and fax them in or something. I love this record. It's so misguided, and the results are so sublimely ridiculous and genuinely weird that this is one record I can put on any old time. But I'll tell you, for no other reason than the inner gatefold photo of Muddy Waters. I mean, come on. We were born to take orders from this guy. This is brilliant. That's worth the price of admission alone. And of course, the shot of his backstage dressing table is pretty cool, too. So great packaging. Shame about the contents. They're very weird. Kind of the same case with Howlin Wolf. I mean, gee whiz, if you're going to talk about quite possibly I'll say my favorite blues man of all time is Howlin Wolf. I'm not the world's biggest aficionado of blues, but the blues I really like. And Howlin Wolf, hands down, is the best. He was an incredible showman, a great songwriter, a voice that you'll never mistake for anybody else. And just the very fact that Captain Beefheart ripped off his entire vocal shtick from Howlin Wolf. For that alone, you gotta love the Wolf. And for that alone, for another thing you have to love the Wolf for, track A2 on this album. The Howlin Wolf doesn't like this album. What's track A2 on here? We're on the real thrill of discovery here together, kids. Tail Dragger, yes, a remake of one of his classic songs. In fact, this album's basically all remakes of his classic songs. Tail Dragger, Built for Comfort, Moaning at Midnight, Spoonful, Red Rooster, Backdoor Man, classic Wolf stuff, but paired with these fey, effete, scrawny, and no doubt pale psychedelic musicians from 1968. At the beginning of Tail Dragger, there's a little bit of studio chatter snippet left in which Howlin Wolf complains about the, quote, queer guitar tone, unquote. I mean, when they said Wolf didn't like it, they weren't kidding. Why they left that in there, I don't know. But I think it kind of tells it like it is. The results speak for themselves. They're weird. Another great weird album from the personal collection. Look it up, give it a listen. I'm sure it's out there on the YouTube somewhere or other streaming services that you kids seem to like so much these days. Arr. Well, we want to talk about some other weird albums in which the old-timers look to rehabilitate themselves as hip and young. Oh, yes, it wasn't just the great blues men. Oh, no. There were plenty of old-time entertainers who found themselves kind of adrift in the psychedelic turned-on era of the 60s. Kind of rudderless, kind of clueless, but still desiring to stay in the game, so they figured they would update themselves. Get current. Get hip, if you will. And did I say hip? Well, check out the hips on this lusty, lovely lady right here, Mae West. Ooh, hips and everything else. And there she is in the middle of three very young, obviously turned on, completely hip musicians from, 1968 probably. For the album Way Out West, actually there's 4 of them. One of them kind of blended into the background there. 4 young, hip, and quite pale musicians dressed in black. And a great quote from Mae herself, come on up and rock with me. Well, I don't know. Would you? I'm a little bit afraid to take that bait. I'm sorry. But yeah, Mae West. I mean, she was a very smart woman. She was an astute businesswoman. She had a successful career, did very well for herself, broke down lots of barriers, but she was not meant to rock and roll. Nope. It's just no. Hard no on that. Hard no, no turning back. It's weird. My God, the results are so weird to hear her caterwauling. Day Tripper. When a Man Loves a Woman. Sounds like she's about to have an aneurysm on that one. Boom Boom, Out Go the Lights, Shakin' All Over, Twist and Shout. A great original track called Mayday. I mean, this is some really bizarre stuff. It's Mae, at the age of about 92, singing her one good long out to a sort of very tame, restrained rock music backdrop. Could have been done by Mike Curb, but instead done by David Mallet, whoever that is. Some kind of Mike Curb wannabe. And if you don't know who Mike Curb is, let's just say the king of easy listening rock music. The man who made the Osmonds what they were. And the man who decided that Frank Zappa and the Velvet Underground were the wrong influence on America's youth, and therefore had to be purged from the roster of MGM Records. It didn't hurt that their sales were rather poor, too. But we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, that's the cloth that this Mae West record is cut from. I guarantee you've heard nothing like it. It's bizarre. I might even put this one on after I sign off, because I really haven't had much of an injection of genuinely bizarre music today. One weird record. She's got another weird record called Great Balls of Fire, which I do believe is on MGM, oddly enough, and that might be a Mike Curb production itself. Well worth looking up. Wow. Weird. Of the same generation, of the same ilk, and of the same desire to be hip and modern and young and relevant, George Burns. Yes, this is George Burns Sings, although that term should be used very loosely. I can't really say much more about his alleged style of singing. It's a very loosely used term. But yeah, they couple him with a bunch of hip young rock musicians, and he does with a little help from my friends, Mr. Bojangles, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, 59th Street Bridge song, Feeling Groovy by Simon and Garfunkel. There's really not much groovy about this record. And if you just take a look at the back, and, if you can really make out the sort of contrast between George Burns and the hip young songsters with him, I don't think I need to point out which one is George Burns. I think it's fairly obvious. And I think you can imagine that his performance on a song like I Can't Get No Satisfaction definitely sounds like it was sung by a guy who looks like George Burns. Fairly safe assumption. Now, what's really, really bizarre about this record is that they somehow sold enough of the original version, entitled George Burns Sings, they sold enough of these suckers to go and do a reissue of it. Which is, to me, is just kind of mind-blowing that they sold that many copies of the first record. They went ahead and reissued it with a somewhat more sedate cover and re-entitled it get the double entendre, guys. Check this out. This is really, really, what's the term I'm looking for? It's hip. Hip. Check it out. Title: A Musical Trip with George Burns. Get it? Trip? It's a trip. It really is a trip, but for all the wrong reasons. Luckily, this version of the album is very common. This is a sealed copy, as a matter of fact. And you can see it's got the telltale cutout notch. They pressed a few million too many, and nobody bought them, so they had to dump them on the market. They should have just left well enough alone with the first pressing, most likely. But, corporate greed, record company greed. Oh, perish the thought. In fact, we'll probably be addressing record company greed in about a minute. But first, we're going to address a musical trip. Not a musical trip by George Burns, but a musical trip by Eric Burdon and the Animals. Yes, a real trip. Now this is a trip. I read an interview with one of Eric Burdon's contemporaries in which they said that Eric Burdon was one of those guys who took a trip and never came back. Judging by the sound of this album and some of the other things I've heard in his post-Animals incarnation, and this is where we take pains to point out that there was originally just the band called the Animals, and then, of course, the big schism and the big split up, and the bands that Eric Burdon put together later were Eric Burdon and the Animals. Two completely different groups. Two completely different sounds. And this album is basically the same as the George Burns record and the Mae West record. This is Eric Burdon busting a gut in an attempt to be completely hip, relevant, and psychodelico, man. So this is a double album, and it's got your obligatory 10 and 11 minute songs with, you know, suicide guitar solos, awesome Vanilla Fudge version of River Deep Mountain High, Ring of Fire, I mean, To Love Somebody, every one of them done with just the most absolute disregard for subtlety or, I guess subtlety. There just isn't any. I mean, look at this, man. Look at that. Very psychedelic. You can tell by the inside. The outside, you know, it's kind of psychedelic, but the inside, that's psychedelic. I mean, that's relevant. This is from the same guy who wrote a song called Yes, I Am Experienced. Thanks for sharing that with us, Eric. Thank you. Weird record. It's totally weird. And for any of you who are fans of the Police, the Police. Who out there graduated from the College of Musical Knowledge and then went on to matriculate at the University of Musical Perversity, like I did? Who knows? What's the connection to the Police? I'm going to just sit here for a second and take another sip of that delicious furniture industry fortified hickory tap water and see if anybody wants to chime in on what is the connection between this record and the Police. Not your local law enforcement, but the band, the Police. I'll give you a minute. Don't look it up either. Don't Google it. That's cheating. So dense, so rich, so thick, this hickory tap. And Grant Den is the first one. Grant is a Police fan. He was a Police fan when I knew him way back when. Grant also posted, very helpfully posted the link to the malcolmtent.net page of Broken Talent Stories, so you guys can see it right there. Thank you for that, Grant. And thank you, Grant, for the first correct answer, in which Andy Summers of the Police, right there, that short little guy, Andy Summers, played with Eric Burdon and the Animals, and maybe even Eric Burdon in the New Animals, and maybe Eric Burdon in the new Animals, and maybe Eric Burdon in the Recycled Animals. There's so many of them. Rotating cast of band members in that group. Some of which Andy writes about in his very excellent autobiography, which if you're a fan of the Police, or just the music biz in general, worth checking out. I think it's called One Train Later. And it's a really cool, candid, and very honest book about his career in the Police and before the Police, and a little bit after. So yeah, he participated in the making of one bona fide weird record. Here's another weird record for you guys. I love talking about weird records and weird stuff. This is not actually an accurate audio visual representation of the record I'm talking about. This is a Beatles 45 on green vinyl. part of the Capitol Records jukebox series from the 90s. Remember what I said earlier about corporate greed? Well, not this specifically, but this would certainly tie in with that. Jonathan Foster has just tuned in and says, good evening. Hello, Jonathan Foster. I'm talking about a weird-ass Beatles record. And maybe not weird for the reasons you would expect. Maybe not weird for the reasons I was expecting when I put this night's episode of Tent Talks Tunes together. Weird because of the way this record was produced for release in the United States of America. The 45 in question was She's a Woman, backed with I Feel Fine. If ever there was a double A-side single, that would be it. But you got to remember, Capitol was the record company that refused to release the Beatles on vinyl in the US when they first came out. This is a true, documented fact. EMI Records sent over the masters for the first couple Beatles 45s, and Capitol said, nope, we're not releasing this garbage. We are not going to put out anything as dumb looking and as lousy sounding as the Beatles in the USA. We're not going to do it. We already got Al Martino. We already got Dean Martin. We got the Holly Ridge Strings. We got the Letterman. We don't need any of this rock and roll stuff. Pass. And it was only through a lot of arm twisting by the parent company that Capitol finally rolled their eyes and begrudgingly released I Want to Hold Your Hand. And the rest, of course, is history. But what's also history is that the same team at Capitol Records who refused to release the Beatles originally were now in charge of releasing Beatles records in the US. Specifically, a guy named Dave Dexter. And if you look at pictures of Dave Dexter, they're readily available on the internet. If you look at this guy and imagine him in charge of marketing the Beatles after he refused, or maybe not him specifically, but the corporate structure he was a part of, refusing to release Beatles records, you can kind of understand why American Beatles records are so weird sounding. Why they have all this compression all over them and all this reverb on them. And the I Feel Fine single is like the most egregious example of that sound. Dave Dexter was in charge of producing Beatles records for US release. And he thought that the Beatles records as they came out of England sounded terrible. He hated the way they sounded. So he processed them, created fake stereo. And in the case of I Feel Fine especially, just drenched them in so much reverb and squashed the sounds so flat that, it's little wonder that the Beatles demanded, fought for, and acquired the right to release their music the way they wanted to release it rather than the way Capitol wanted to release it. Because of stuff like the I Feel Fine single. It's really weird to listen to it. It's got a very, very strange, absolutely unnatural sound to it. And, for years and years and years, that was the only way you could hear She's a Woman and I Feel Fine in the US. It was on this legitimately weird sounding record. I'm pretty sure, they've been doing reissues of all the Capitol albums in their original processed so-called glory. So that version might still be available. But luckily, the real version, as the Beatles and George Martin intended for it to be sounding, has been the standard for a very long time now. But you can find the original version. It's on YouTube, like everything else is. Check it out and just listen to all that very strange reverb and compression that's all over it. And then listen to the original version. It's like being locked in a closet and then all of a sudden flying over the Grand Canyon. It's like that much of a difference sonically. There's nothing weird about the original one. There's a lot weird about the American one. Oh, yes. I got some messages coming in soon. I have to ignore them because I'm on live. I could go on and on and on about weird records, but let me see what else I got here. All right, I might as well address corporate greed a little bit, and then I'm going to sign off. And I came across this while I was going through my personal collection. I've got this great Day for Decision by Johnny C. This is one of those records that was, it was an answer record to Eve of Destruction. You know, you had Eve on the Destruction, the lefty liberal protest song about World War III, and then you had Day for Decision, the righty-tighty protest song about current events. Neither one of them a very good song, but, you know, each one of them was able to generate an album's worth of similar sound-alike songs. So, you know, you had Eve of Destruction, here's Day of Decision. It's not a very good record, but what I thought was really funny about it was that it's on this label right here. Warner Brothers Records. This is an early release on Warner Brothers, and its catalog number is WS1659. And I just thought it was very, very funny because this record, released by Warner Brothers, total put down of Day of Eve of Destruction came out only a very short period of time before their first ever rock and roll release. The very first rock and roll album ever on Warner Brothers, which you can see has the exact same gold label. Catalog number on this one is 1689. So this one was 1659. 30 records later, Warner Brothers releases its very first ever rock and roll album by, you guessed it, the Grateful Dead. Ha 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 ha. Now, I just want to make it clear right here, right now, I got nothing against the Grateful Dead. I've even been known to enjoy some Grateful Dead music in my day. I got nothing against Johnny C. or his right to record a right-wing anthem in answer to a left-wing anthem. I got nothing against Barry McGuire for writing what I think is a really lousy song. Got nothing against any of those people. I don't even necessarily have anything against Warner Brothers Records per se, other than the fact that they are typical corporate major label behemoths who really will put out anything just to make a buck. And they see no ideological conflict between Johnny C. and the Grateful Dead, other than that Johnny C. didn't sell nearly as many records as the Grateful Dead, and was therefore consigned to the garbage can, whereas the Grateful Dead, well, you know the rest of that story. Sorry, guys. I run my own record label, TPOS, as I'm very fond of pointing out, and I only put out things that I like and that I think are interesting. And that's why I can get on my moral high horse and point the finger at Warner Brothers Records for being so cynical and so utterly greed-driven as to just release any old thing that they think is going to sell. Whether it's Johnny C. or the Grateful Dead, or Captain Beefheart or the New Christy Minstrels. You know what I mean? There's just I'm not going to go on a rant. I'm going to stop the rant right now because I hate the major labels that much. And part of the reason is just because of that sheer unbridled cynicism, greed, and desire to cash in. Can't do it, guys. I just can't. Which is not to say that I, myself, lack the desire or the ambition to cash in. I mean, hey, that's why I continually flog my label, Discogs, eBay, and Bandcamp presence. Yes, TPOS on Discogs, eBay, and Bandcamp. If for no other reason than by selling lots of records, I get to pay for Harry's cat food. I get to pay for his cat litter. And I get to pay for food for myself. And I also just love releasing records. I love putting out cassettes. I love putting out 8-tracks. I even love putting out CDs these days. So I might as well just put the brakes on this episode of Tent Talks Tunes by tooting my own horn about a couple of exciting new releases I got coming up. I've talked about this one ad infinitum, ad nauseum. Brand new, long-lost studio album by Punkin. Punkin being the brainchild of Gary Forney of LaPorte City, Iowa. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you want to hear something exciting, unique, and original, check out Punkin. I guarantee you've never heard anything quite like it. And I am delighted to have Gary Forney and his band on TPOS, on exciting labels, Take Two, on exciting formats like cassette and 8-track. Oh yes. And this is not something I put out, but I do have copies of his brand new hand-lathed single, which is not round black vinyl, but square white vinyl. Look at that. How cool is that? On the very excellent People in a Position to Know record label. A label that I really like. They've got some really cool bands. They've got Michael Now, they got Floating Action, they got Dream Sitch, and now they got Gary Forney. How cool is that? So, very excited about that. Also very excited about another upcoming release. I flashed the test pressing of this a few weeks ago. I love the nuts and bolts of releasing records, and I love test pressings. This is a test pressing of TPOS number 101. It came to me with blank labels, so I very carefully put a TPOS label on it and hand-stamped it with the catalog number 101. Test pressing for an upcoming release that I just got the covers for. The covers for TPOS number 101 are now in stock. And I think it came out pretty good. Check that out. Reverend Jim Jones and the People's Temple Choir. He is able. First ever vinyl repressing of this 1973 album. Yes, it is that Jim Jones. Yes, it's that People's Temple Choir. Yes, the music is really good. The music stands on its own. The music holds its own. And I think that the fact that this was made in good faith by good people in an honest effort to get a message across makes it worthwhile, let alone the historical interest and the historical significance. I'm really happy and really excited to have this coming out soon on TPOS. And I must say I'm pretty excited and happy about the way the darn thing came out. I'm a self-taught graphic designer, and I like a simple, strong look, which is good because it's about all I'm capable of doing. But I think it came out looking pretty good. So the vinyl is at the pressing plant right now. The covers are in hand. And so expect to see results soon-ish on eBay, Discogs, and Bandcamp. TPOS, the modern-day trademark of quality. Except my stuff is legit. Big difference. That's about it for me, guys. I want to thank everybody for hanging out and yipping and yapping and posting your comments and everything. Always good to hear from yous. Always good to talk to yous. Always good to hang out with yous on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock p.m. live on my Facebook page and ad infinitum on my YouTube channel. So I do hope to be back in about 167 hours' time or so. Till we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Tar Heel State.